Okay, so when I was writing the concept for the Absent EP, I really wanted to draw a lot of inspiration from some of my favorite records that were, some of them were conceptual and some of them weren't. Probably the biggest influence was Reflections, the Color Clear record, because it touches on a lot of the topics that I touch on in this EP, which is depression, suicide, sadism, all of that kind of stuff. And then, trying to tie in a loose story, I kind of referenced Slice the Cake's last record and stuff like that. I just really liked the idea of having a record where everything makes sense together, whether it's lyrically or melodically within the songs. So for today, I'm going to discuss two particular songs that we ended up writing for this EP that specifically tie the entire record together, which is, obviously the beginning of the record and the end. I really like the idea of having things repeat. I like repeating melodic themes. That's something that I really enjoy in my writing. But with the theme of this record, I really wanted to get as personal as possible and touch on a topic that I've really wanted to write about for a while, which is depression and suicide, but not in like a go kill yourself kind of way and, just trying to be edgy for the sake of being edgy. That's not my goal with writing this type of material. And just disclaimer right away, I do not advocate for suicide. I'm not trying to glorify it by any means. I'm telling my story, my personal experiences with friends that I've lost, friends that everybody in the band has lost. It's kind of an amalgamation of all of our experiences put together. So I tried my best to be as vague about these people that I talk about in on this record, because I don't, feel as though everybody needs to know who they are. But I'll get into what these two songs really mean and the overarching story of the record. So I wrote, I pretty much wrote an entire description of what every single song means thematically, but today I'm only going to go over the two big ones because it's really where the bulk of the story lies. But just a general overview of what it is. The overarching story of this record is the deterioration and downward spiral one's mind embarks on when it ventures down the rabbit hole of depression and self-loathing. Each song is a stage of our character's depression and the multitude of emotions that come with it. So I started off the record with this song called Present. Instrumentally, just to kind of go into it, we had written the last song second out of all the songs that we wrote together, and that one's called Absent, which is the title track. And I wrote this end section that was very black metal, Death Heaven-esque, a very melancholy melody, and I really liked the chord progression, so I decided that I wanted to write an intro song that borrowed the same chords and the same melody, so that I could lyrically tie everything together at the end of the record as well. So I was definitely thinking really far ahead. That's really what I wanted to accomplish. So the way I wrote the lyrics for this first song was in a more positive light. So we have our main character throughout the story, but the beginning of it is a dialogue between that main character who's going to be going through this journey of depression and self-loathing with their closest friend. And like I said, I wrote this as vague as possible so that anybody could put this into any situation that they've experienced in their life. If you feel as though this story, reaches out to you and pertains to your particular situation, it easily could, because of how vague I ended up writing it. But basically, the first song is a dialogue between the two friends. They're really talking about their relationship and how much they cherish each other. And the main line that I'm going to reference is once absent but whole again, because it has two different meanings from the beginning and the end. The first reference of the line is before they met each other, they were absent. They didn't have that feeling of love or friendship in their heart. But once they ended up meeting each other and becoming friends and building this relationship, they became whole. And it's more of just like the beauty of friendship and relationships and all of that. And so the really important line from the beginning here is Oh, dear friend, it's great to be with you again. With each passing day, I never grow old of your face. We made these memories. I'll cherish every second. Nothing can take this away. I only hope that we don't forget a firm grip on every sentiment. So it's a lot of kind of just like reminiscing, really cherishing the time that they're spending together. And they hope that where the song kind of starts to turn more towards the dark side, if you will, as we start to progress into the record. We will burden ourselves with this. We've burdened ourselves with bliss, where it's kind of like, a blessing and a curse thing, with insurmountable amounts of love, your chances of feeling loss are a lot higher when that love fades or if that person passes away. You love the happy moments when you're with them, but once that person is gone, it's kind of a feeling of emptiness and absentness, I guess, where, you long to have that feeling again. And that's kind of where our downward progression begins for this record. It sets up, the rest of the songs that are coming up, where, Vanta Black is very much a self-reflection of, you know, you realized how worthless you really are and how you should have known this from the beginning, but you've kind of only just realized through this point in your life, and you don't really see the point in carrying on. And it's really dark themes, but this is like from my personal experiences battling with depression and stuff like that. But just being an observer of people going through this and then seeing where they end up, it's a pretty accurate generalization, I would say. But yeah, moving on, like through the record, Our Scars is very much the same way, where it's more of like a sadist kind of feeling, where the only real feeling they get from life now is inflicting pain upon themselves, which is a very real thing that a lot of friends that I've had have experienced, which is awful, but it's the reality of the situation, unfortunately. A Plague is more of a generalized overview of the entire world and how our character feels about the world and us as humanity, where the Earth was fine before we showed up, and then we showed up and we basically screwed everything up, and we are our own downfall kind of thing. And that's generalized. That's what that song is about. And then this is the big song that I wanted to really mention between present, precursor, absent, post. So Absent is a very personal and in-depth song about a real situation that happened, that I'm not going to divulge in too much, but it's the beginning of the song is, as the day is long, the nights are longer. When our hope starts to fade, they left no stone unturned, no trail unfollowed, yet we stand here empty. Basically, there was a search party sent out for this person where they looked, high and low, and they tried their best, but, nothing really led anywhere, and they couldn't really find anything, and they literally kind of just ended up standing there with their hands empty, not really knowing what to do next. You left us at bay at the gates. You sealed your fate. You've sealed your fate. So that's a reference to a particular bridge where this person ended up committing suicide, which the next line references: a cold embrace, the waves wrapped around your soul to take you away, the arms of the sea rhythmically lull you to sleep. Basically just the embrace of the ocean, and the kind of end for our character and how they chose to end their life. And I kind of tried to make that as poetic and softer, if you will, because it's obviously an awful way to go, but just kind of thinking it in a way that, like, that's what they chose to do, and it lulled them to sleep, and it carried them away. Kind of has a more comforting feeling as opposed to getting gruesome with the situation. And then throughout the song, it kind of shifts to our other character, who is the observer of all this, who's lost their friend by the end here, reflecting and being like, what could I have done to prevented this? Did I do anything wrong? You can't really blame yourself for stuff like friends committing suicide. It's their choice. It's what they wanted to do. It's super unfortunate. And I mean, the things will never really be the same afterwards, but it's you kind of have to end up making your peace with it, which I have in a way. But this record and the way I wrote this was kind of my form of closure, to kind of finally write a piece of art and say goodbye and to those friends that I've lost and who we've all lost. But this line kind of reflects that, regret. I'm pacing around these four walls that have always housed my sanity. My inner guilt is slipping through the cracks. I can never turn back. So it's just a lot of like, especially when the person was missing too in this particular situation, it's really just like, man, like, I hope they turn up. It's just a lot of like regret and, worry. Heart stop beating when your fears come true. We never thought we would ever lose you. That's kind of a reflection of that as well. I also have a line in here that says she still hears your voice in her sleep, which is a reflection of the person's mother who, wakes up in the middle of the night still thinking they hear their son or daughter or whoever in their house or anywhere. But, they're gone, and it's just kind of the ghosts that reside within their mind of their loved one. So by the end of this record now is where we start to come back to the beginning of the song Present, where these lyrics now parallel each other, where the first song was the positive aspect of these lyrics, and this last song is now the negative post effect of what's happened afterwards. Reality has burdened me, reality has burdened us with this, which is a verbatim kind of line from the beginning, but it takes on a new light when we realize that we grasped our hands just to slip away again. Perpetual sorrow personified. Perpetual sorrow personified to me is really the line that ties the entire song together as a whole for a few reasons. One is because, so for the last song, Absent, I wrote an acoustic outro that plays with waves underneath it. And I really liked that. So I wanted to use it again for the beginning of the record, but I didn't really want to use exactly what I did. So what I decided to do was I used the same performance of the acoustic guitar, but I reversed it. And then I reversed all the guitars that I used for that outro. So it kind of felt like it was moving in and out as if it was like waves, essentially. Referring to, the situation of the person committing suicide from, taking their own life off of the bridge. So the feeling of the guitars reversed felt like waves moving in and out with waves in the background. But what's important to note about that is when the record ends, if you play the record on a loop, it will loop right back to the very beginning, and it'll feel as though it's one big cohesive song, or the whole record is one big cohesive song, because it flows all as one. And to me, that is perpetual sorrow personified, because the record is sad and it's just a perpetual cycle of sorrow and sadness. And like, before we get to the line that pretty much verbatim copies the first song, why must we feel this way? You ended your pain, so why do I still feel this weight? Where it's kind of the internal confliction where, do you feel bad, or do you feel like this person was selfish that they took their life, or do you kind of feel a sense of happiness that, they made their choice and this is what they would have rather have done as opposed to living, which is an awful way to think about it. But it's like, if they were suffering, is this what they wanted? Which, I mean, you can help anybody in any situation. You can try your best and, always be there for your friends and talk to them. People make their choice though, and that's the unfortunate reality of life sometimes, is some people just have it really rough and they suffer for a long time. And that's kind of the inner confliction that I end up having near the end of this record is, should I be feeling this pain? Should I be happy? I mean, I'm not happy, obviously, but, it's hard to explain. We'll carry the flame, it won't be the same, but we'll cherish every second, it won't fade away. So that's kind of what this album or EP is we're carrying the flame of, the people that we've lost. This is a tribute to them. This is a piece of art that I wanted to encapsulate these feelings I had during these moments, and for everybody else in my band as well. So finally, we get to the end here. The parallel line to the beginning one. My friend, how I long to be with you again. It's been so long since I've seen your face. Time gave us these memories whilst tearing them away from me. I hope to see you standing at the end, grasping at where it all began, once absent but whole again. So just to refresh, the very first line or section of the very first song, oh dear friend, it's great to be with you again. With each passing day, I never grow old of your face. We made these memories. I'll cherish every second. Nothing will take this away. I only hope that we don't forget a firm grip on every sentiment. So it's just the negative parallel of that line, and I wanted to make that distinction very clear as to where our characters were at the beginning and where they end up being at the end. So I know that this is not a very positive message by any means, but it's just a part of life is death, and it's sad, but I feel a lot more comfortable talking about it as opposed to internalizing those feelings, and that's exactly what this is. Also important, throughout this record when I was recording, I said the names of the people that we've lost. They're hidden throughout this record. I doubt you'll find most of them. You might find a few. But yeah, I wanted to do that as a tribute to them, and that's pretty much it.